Well, the lovely ukulele music must mean that it's another podcast time, or the MalTravAle podcast. So good evening, Bruce. Good evening, Nicholas.
Good evening. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Yeah.
Very new, yes. Happy Hanukkah tonight, and a happy Advent. It's the first we lit the candle this morning in church, in a very snowy, cold church. So we are recording this on Sunday, the 28th of November. It's a very snowy Sunday, so I think we've all got snow up in Yorkshire and also here in Staffordshire. We might have some snowy tales as we go through as well, really. So again, it's been a couple of weeks since we last met up, so we'll certainly got some things to talk about. And more excitingly, we're actually going to be seeing each other in person next week, weather permitting and COVID permitting, because we've just had a few announcements this weekend as well. And we're heading onto the TransPennine for a little Christmas bumble around the environs of Yorkshire and Greater Manchester / Lancashire. So this week is episode 26. I don't know why on Twitter I put 27, but we are not quite there yet. So it's episode 26, and I decided this week, it was my kind of thinking about what it was, thinking about Christmas. So we were going to get to think about what pubs we would like to be spending some time together over the Christmas period. Obviously, last year was a complete nightmare in that we were all stuck in our little houses. In fact, Nick had to come into my house and drink alcohol-free beer because he was driving all the way back to Yorkshire. In fact, I found a couple more of those cans this week, Nick, that are lurking in my garage. So last year, obviously, was a complete sellout. The pubs were completely shut, weren't they? I think all Christmas were last year.
Oh, so boring, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah. So
briefly, it looks as though we're heading for the same way, but I think better about the poor people who've got it so far. Apparently, the symptoms are mild for the Omnicom so far.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, and I'm guessing that I think that would be a very, very last resort, wouldn't it, to shut everything down again? Because I think we've kind of gone past that.
Well, once again, they're saying about compulsory wearing masks in shops again, but why not in pubs?
Well, that's what I was said. And to be honest, Nick,
it's the economy again, because he knows the pubs can't go back to table service and everybody sat down because they just don't have the staff to do it.
But I wonder whether that'll come, because the same thing with me. I've just an email from DfE telling me that I've got to tell all my students to wear masks tomorrow. So come out late. That wasn't announced yet. But, in that press conference yesterday, that wasn't announced. So,
but they've always said of all the measures that people could take, mask wearing was the most effective. So why they dropped it when they did, I don't know really.
Yeah, very.
Anyway, there we go. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So what we've all done is we've come up with our two pubs that we would hope that we'll be able to spend some time in over the Christmas period, and that's now. Nick thought we might pick the same pubs. We actually picked completely different pubs. So I'm just putting a little teaser. I'll put this out on Twitter this afternoon. So I don't think Bruce will know where this is. Nick should, because Nick's actually been here on a Christmas Eve a few years ago. But this is one of mine. So little teaser. There's a picture there on the YouTube, which is a very nice pub, all decked out in twinkly lights, and I couldn't get any snow on it, but it's looking very kind of Christmassy. So Nick's looking very puzzled, so I might drop him a few hints about that.
I suppose that was my dilemma, you see, when talking about pubs at Christmas. For the last 15, 20 years, I've not really spent time in pubs up here. It's been down at your place.
Yeah.
And only pubs I remember is Christmas Eve or pubs on your estate. So,
But we went to this pub on an afternoon of a Christmas Eve, Nick. And a very snowy day, actually, when we went. So we'll come back to that one. Anyway, talking of snow, I guess every beer drinker's Nirvana. Have you picked this up, guys? So the Tan Hill Inn, which obviously is the highest pub in England, it's always claimed, up in the wilds of North Yorkshire, heading towards kind of the Durham and Cumbria border. For the third day running, there are 50 people who went to an Oasis tribute on Friday night. And when the band had finished playing whatever they were playing, Oasis tribute songs, they opened the doors and they couldn't get home. So apparently they tried to get out again on Saturday. But again, the paper tonight on the BBC, this is BBC News, are saying that for the third night, there are 50 people stuck in the Tan Hill Inn up in the wilds of North Yorkshire with something like 4 or 5 foot snowdrifts outside of it. So I remember it was Christmas, wasn't it? Last time I think it's a bit of a. They showed some pictures and the road didn't look that bad actually. There were some drifts like that, but I think it's just like a good crack in it. So
brilliant, wouldn't it?
Night in the pub, yeah. So
probably been having lifetime, isn't it? That.
They've been having pub quizzes and charades and stuff. There were some pictures of them they'd sent in. So yeah. So Storm Arwen, which you've just kind of had over the last kind of 48 hours, and There we go. So, yeah, the tanner lid worth looking out for. So, beery highlights. I'm hoping you've got some YouTube because you didn't send me anything. So, I'm going to kick off with mine, and then hopefully you might chuck some in. I've just said to Bruce, Nick, last time I spoke to you was on Friday night, or when we spoke for a while, and I was currently out on my own, just going to do my Friday night de-stress, and I was just about to tuck into an Imperial Stout vanilla custard tart. 11%, which you kind of went, ugh. It was actually all right, actually. It was quite nice. That was from Three Hills Brewery. So that was one of my highlights. But as I mentioned, I did manage to get down to London on Tuesday. It's a beautiful, again, if you're on YouTube, the pictures, it was beautiful. It was one of those lovely crisp winter day, absolutely brimming blue sky. As Nick had reported, and Bruce, it was fairly quiet in London. It wasn't over manic. I got the tube down from Euston down to Victoria, and it's fairly, you even got a seat. Fortunately, I had quite a long meeting down there. So apart from me getting mixed up in the funeral of Sir David Amis, who was just being interned, well, not interned, but as I walked past the Catholic Cathedral just down from Parliament, he was just coming out of there. And again, if you're on the YouTube on that left-hand picture, that's me in the middle of all the MPs who are making their way back to Parliament. So I just managed to get in the Euston tap. I mentioned that a few times. It's great if you are using Euston. It's one of the old gate, whatever they were. There's one either side of the kind of what used to be the main into the Euston. Although they seem to do a lot of work down there, so it may again go back to being the entrance to Euston. So it's quite a weird building. It's got a little bit of an upstairs. I've just got to see actually downstairs. It was fairly quiet. It was at 4 o'clock when I was just going dark. I think I said there were something like 34 different beers on. So very nice. And I had a couple of cask beers, which was very good. And I actually ended up because my train was about, I think it was 30 minutes to work for. And I'm just going to move the pictures because I actually had for the first time one of those Timmy Taylor crafty beer ones, which was Hopical Storm, which was one of their keg beers. So I've not seen that before. So that was very nice. And then, as always, on Friday night, I went down to my local in Millard to look at those prices, boys. They're still there. Still £3 a pint for a pint of Oats. And the Diamond Curse was the newer beer they had on this week. I was a bit disappointed actually because the Citra and the Butley were on last week. And then Pentrick, I've got to get this right now. He'd tell me how to say it. Pentrick, as in crick. Because Pentrick is a newish brewery out towards Ripley in Derbyshire. And I presume it's near Crick where that word comes from. So they said they're going to have a permanent one of those on, and that was quite nice. That was a pale ale. So it was very nice. So, Bruce, have you been out and about this last week or so?
I have, yeah. I should have brought some photographs for you, really. We went out last Saturday afternoon. With a bit of spare time, Evie was walking up Ingleborough and nobody's in the house, so me and a friend who took Ben with us actually. I'd say town was heaving. York is absolutely busting at the seams of tourists for those Christmas markets. It's just insane. But we did manage to get into some of the pubs. Where did we go to? We went to Valhalla, which is the Viking bar that's lads in lockdown.
Has that had a bit of a refurb, Bruce? I've been reading about.
Well, you have to say it's astonishing, really. I mean, Nick's holding his head. They should be so proud of what they've done.
New blankets and new scaffolding boards and new axes on wall.
No, they've spent the lockdown, Nick. It was absolutely astonishing. They've gone upstairs. I mean, and done all the labouring apparently themselves as well to keep the costs down. And it was quite compact, and a lot of people really like it downstairs. And it's like it. It's like a gently Viking theme, but
gently Viking theme, gently. Well, you can't get any more Viking than well.
Oh no, but they don't make a big song now, do they? So they've gone upstairs into the floor above it and into the loft, and they made an amazing job of it. I must send you some photographs. Actually, I thought, to be honest, I mean they've worked so hard because obviously they worked on. There was really no outside table service for them really till later when they got permission to put a few tables outside. So they've just grafted. They've just created this amazing space now. It's dark, it's atmospheric. There's a few skulls now and things. They've got used all the local craftsmen for the tables and things. They've got locally produced stone. It looks absolutely amazing. I will definitely take upload some photographs for next week. So it's on 3 floors now. Now they've got the volume of people coming through. They're getting their own house beers produced by Half Moon at Harrogate. We have to say it's the type of thing that if you went to Oslo and you stumbled across that, you'd be absolutely blown away by. And they've done most of the work themselves. And the thing is, it feels old. I mean, what pubs we talk about are generally pubs that
those are the Vikings, bros.
I say generally, the pubs we talk
don't
about.
They have on a Sunday night? Don't they have a rape and pillage night as well?
No.
And what are the prices like, Bruce?
And burning.
Prices aren't too bad at all. But I mean, I say you must be so, because you think of the pubs we talk about, we're normally we're in historic pubs that are, it's about preserving them, isn't it? But what they've actually done, created there to create the atmosphere and create space, it's astonishing, really.
And again, that corner of York now, and we're talking really around the edge of the market, aren't we? The old-fashioned market. We obviously Shambles Tavern, where we've been, and we did a podcast on there. You've got the Thornbridge, the Pivney Market Cat.
Pivney.
You've got Pivney as well. Yeah.
So it's just an absolute
cracking little kind of play. Yeah.
Plus, it's 2 steps from Valhalla to Pivney now. I was saying. But it is astonishing, really. I did hear that someone's trying to get permission for another pub down the Shambles City back against it. But I mean, at the minute that someone's made the point, it's full of Harry Potter shops now. Is the Shambles? It's dreadful. So to get like a place that supports
dreadful, Bruce. What's wrong with Harry Potter theming? We're all for themed bars, aren't we?
I know, but
shops.
Well, it's interesting
when you've got 5 or 6 shops selling exactly the same thing. It's a bit grim, isn't it? That's the trouble.
Well,
what's happening with that axe throwing bar over in Gudrumgate as well, Bruce?
That's thriving. They've got doing a lot of street food now. They've got a lot of few rails in there now. In fact, I had a look in for the first time this week. Your friend wanted to have a look in on lunchtime, so we take a look. I mean, I have to say, it kind of looks fun. I can't say axe throwing something that really I'd be too enthralled about, but they've got a nice space, and then at the back of the shop you've got all these like axe throwing cages, and you could kind of see how fun it would be, really. So no, I have to say, but the entrepreneurial spirit these people have displayed has been astonishing.
Wasn't the one in York that's going to have a golf course as well in it? One of those virtual golf courses. Sure, that was another one we looked at as well.
Harry Potter themed.
No, this is that's open already.
Yeah,
I've been to that one. It's that's a shop, not a big shop, a small shop. They've managed to put 9 holes over 2 stories.
Yeah,
nine very small holes, I have to say.
Good stuff. Right, Nicholas, have you been out and about?
Not well, as you know. I took mother and father out for a meal yesterday, so we went out to Harrogate to our favourite eating pub out that way, which is the Smith's Arms. It's a chef and brewer, but they always have a good range of beers on in there. So I was only able to have one. So I had a nice pint of Acorn Brewery Barnsley Gold. Tried a different non-alcoholic or very, very low alcoholic beer, which was a Speckled Hen.
All right,
0.5. Won't recommend it. Not as good as Adnams Ghost Ship. It was typical watery, no characteristics to it when you first tasted it. And then the aftertaste was like that sweet molasses taste, as though it was beer that hadn't quite reached its point. When you walk around a brewery, you can smell that sweet bit where the wort's being boiled up, with the sugars are being released and all that sort of stuff. So it wasn't very good.
I see that Heineken's a lot of press about Heineken about to release their Heineken Zero. And I noticed there's been a bit of a spat because I think Pete Brown, amongst others, has pointed out in their advertising, and they've got what's her face off the telly to promote it. I don't know her name now. She's on Gogglebox. They're claiming it's the first ever draft 0% beer, and like everybody's pointing out, there's loads of breweries have been putting 0 beer into casks and kegs for quite a while. So interesting to see what that one comes really.
Whilst I was in Harrogate, I did walk past, I think it's called the Harrogate Inn, which is sandwiched between Betty's and Wetherspoons.
Oh, yeah, I've been by there, yeah.
And Betty's around. Spotted a poster in the window, and it said, bored of working at home, make the pub your office for the day. And they're offering bottomless hot and soft drinks, lunch, a safe working place, Wi-Fi and plug sockets for just £12.50.
Yeah, there's quite a few places doing that in Manchester and round us.
That's a bit of entrepreneurial.
So
I don't know what lunch you're getting, but I mean, bottomless soft drinks for £12.50 saves you having to sit at home and put your eating on, doesn't it?
And also renting an office as well. Renting an office, isn't it?
But I mean, once again, the reason that Boris is telling people to work from home again is so you're not all crowding together. But these guys are wanting you to all crowd in the pub and work from there. So don't know how that works really. And I've just had a walk up to the old Mortal Royal Oak once again, because I was driving. I've only had one. I had White Rat Breweries, which is Ossett's Brewery, Snow Rat, which is described as a spicy golden ale, which, was all right. I only saw the spicy bit after I'd started to sample it because I thought, it's got a bit of a Christmassy, spicy taste to it. But, White Rat.
Perhaps look out for that one next week then, because we're in that way,
Christmas
aren't we, next
rat.
week? And I've just booked us, Nick. I've booked us for New Year. So for New Year, we're going up to Amble in Northumberland.
Oh,
so I've been looking at there's quite a few pubs there, but unfortunately, most of them on what pub don't have any cask beer. But there's a couple of little gems. The Cock and Bull apparently is a fantastic little place that specialises in beer and cheese. There is, and I've also picked out that behind us, Nick, is a fantastic working men's club. And on New Year's Eve, they've got 4 games of bingo, 2 games of bongo bingo, entertainment, and a buffet, a buffet, all for £8. So I might be booking us in that for New Year's Eve.
Any Vikings?
What do you do if you're not members?
We'd be all right. Camera with members, we'd be all right.
Yeah. Well, I say,
Lashings of Federation bitter.
by going to Smith's Arms last night, they had 2022 copy of the Camera Good Beer Guide there because they're all
right. Yeah.
So I was having a quick look in there. There's only one pub listed in Amble, and yet, as I say, when I looked on the map, there was at least 7 or 8 pubs in the town.
Yeah.
They're in there. And this year in Malton, we've got Blue Ball, Brass Castle, and then pleased to see New Malton's gone back in there. But there's only 3 listed for Malton this year. And once again, the old Malt Royal Oak isn't in there. So we'll have to have a bit of a campaign for next year to try and get Steve in the Good Beer Guide, because I say he's put another pump on the bar now. So he's got 4 real ales on at all times. So he's got 3, which are predominantly Yorkshire. And then he's got a guest as well, which is bringing in beers from all over the country. So tonight he had one of the Exmoor pub, not Gold. I think he had Fox or something in there. But so he's going to have 1 national one and then 3 Yorkshire ones. So yeah,
there are some bad emissions in the Good Beer Guide now, though. I believe the Boatmaker's Arm's not in it anymore, which seems insane. We're
back to as we said before. You're back to the vagaries of your local camera voting people, aren't you? And it's there's some of that rather than pubs that are by merit, really.
Yeah, so if you go in the Boatmakers, you can't try another beer other than Timothy Taylor's.
Yeah, the Timothy Taylor's. Yeah.
The best pint I had over the past fortnight was that day after we went out. We went to the Stickleway as well, and they had great Newsom, Fotheringham Best one. God Almighty, that was in good condition.
You mean that there, bros?
Oh, fantastic! Yeah.
I was going to say it's the time we shared our drinks. I think uniquely, it must be getting Christmas. I think we've all got beer in our hands this evening. So Nick's on these Great Newsom. So I think there's still a box of that Great Newsom at my mum and dad's house, Bruce, for you for your birthday. It was only in August.
I'll get through for Christmas, have it? Yeah.
And 10% off at the moment. That's their Black Friday.
That's right. I saw that. Yeah.
10% off. I mean, their boxes are cheap anyway, so another 10% might not sound a lot, but I mean they're already cheaper than a lot of the breweries anyway. So if anybody's fancying trying it, then I would think they'll be on for a week. That's the Black Friday deal. And
then, come on, Bruce, what are you on tonight? Because it's a rare occasion you've got a beer in hand.
So I went to the Camden Brewery in August and bought they had some special cans, the Arches edition ones. So I'm getting through them now before they run out of there. This is a Pina Colada lager. It's 5.5%. I have to say, it's absolutely delicious. Yeah, it really is pineapple. It's absolutely lovely. Yeah.
Crafty beer. Well, I'm unbottling quite a nice one, really. And I'm just said to Bruce before we went on air that it's actually sell by date was or use by date. So it was September 21. But this was one of my leggings, I think, from last year when obviously we were hoping that we'd have a much better Christmas. So this is a bottle of Anchor Brewery from San Francisco, and this is their Merry Christmas, Happy New Year beer. So it's 7%, and it is, what does it say it is? It says it's this is their 46th annual Christmas beer. So I presume it's going to be like a bit of a kind of a darky, ambery beer. So I'm going to unwrap it, untap it. Hopefully it'll be all right. It's been in my garage for the last
that ABV. There's a lot of beers of that strength that actually just get better and better.
Yeah.
I mean, lot of the well-known breweries lay the beer down for years.
It's very dark, almost a Mackinson, almost, I think.
Yeah, been out wrong with that.
There's maybe a little bit of a whiff of a... Oh no, that's quite drinkable. Oh yeah, it's quite treacly.
I've been in Morrison's
All right,
this afternoon. They're doing slabs of Brewdog. 10 cans. They're doing 10 cans of their Christmas, which is 6% IPA, and a mixed slab of 12 cans for 2 packs for 20 quid, which ain't bad,
is it? Yeah.
because they normally knock one of their 12 pack out at 12 quid. So
Well,
you're
the
saving 4 quid,
30 ml cans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
okay.
they say one's a mix of 12 different, basically their full range.
Yeah.
And then their Christmas IPA as well, which I imagine it's going to be a bit like Elvis juice because it's a 6%er. So I didn't think that was a bad price. That's
Well,
less
I'm
than a pound
hoping
a can,
again
isn't it?
to get some of that Titanic plum porter, which we did last Christmas. I had to drink it all myself because Nick had a couple of very small glasses. So that's my plan for Christmas. So
how many pints do you get in a mini keg?
8.5.
About just under 9.
Litres.
Yeah.
5 litres, 8.5.
Yeah.
Fox at the end, they're doing mini kegs of White Rat or Yorkshire Blonde for £20. Which she says is going
well,
fast.
I've got to say, Morrison's the best. If you get in Morrison, if you get in there right, you sometimes get 12 quid sometimes.
That's brilliant.
I mean, I think 16 Nick is their normal kind of supermarket price, isn't it? In there,
Mm-hmm.
I was in B&M the other week and they had Budweiser Budvar at 12 quid, which when I thought about it, that was a good deal.
all right. And then you have to get Hobgoblin Gold, Wainwright, you get in there for 12 quid. Yeah. So it's worth popping into Morrison's, and when I don't know what the sell by date, whether that's what they go on, I don't know, but that's worth looking out for.
The thing is, they're not any cheaper than really buying your 4 bottles for 6 quid. But the thing is, if you are going anywhere, then they take up a hell of a lot less space.
Yeah.
Because you're getting 5 litres of liquid in one big aluminium can, whereas you get the same quantity of bottles. You've got to create bottles, haven't you?
And I think that quite a few of this new pour system, which is a lot better than the old one, where I think it did go pretty flat. It was either frothing like hell or pretty flat within 24 hours. But I've got to say, the ones I've had recently with this new pouring system and a new kind of CO2 system do work really well. It's been a really busy week or so for beer news. In fact, I think we've had so much beer news. We've all seen each other. I'm going to keep some back, I think, because there seems to be a hell of a lot going. I suppose it's Christmas, isn't it? And people kind of getting back on their feet. So let's just whack through some of these. This is one that I kind of picked up and then shared with Bruce. So the Daily Mirror early this week were running, I don't know whether it's Daily Mirror, but they were the ugliest pub competition in the UK. And the winner, which I think doesn't look too bad actually, was the William Dampfer, which is a Wetherspoons pub in Yeovil, Somerset. But I think, Bruce, me and you both agreed that the one or two that I'm going to show you in a minute look a lot worse than this place. Right, yeah. So if you Google Mirror, Daily Mirror and the world's ugliest pub, you'll get to see these. So again, for those on YouTube, this is kind of a nondescript kind of corner city town centre pub, isn't it, really?
There's not much natural light in there.
I was going to say it'd be very dark in there, I feel, wouldn't it? Not much ventilation.
And I'm assuming that was an old cinema looking at that entrance, I would guess, in the good old days. Yeah. Or some kind of works, or maybe a garage, I guess, with the way that it worked there. I
think the Wetherspoons in Lancaster is about as bad as that one.
Right. So if you look bottom right, that's the Budgie in Glasgow, which looks like some kind of cheap taxi place, doesn't it? I mean, that is very dark. The one above it is the Clarendon in Manchester, which looks like that pub that...
Shameless,
yeah. Very much kind of one of the old traditional estate pubs.
Estate, yeah.
But then me and Bruce both felt that the winner should have been, and again, for those on YouTube, it's the bigger photo, which is the Mayflower in Bootle, Liverpool, which looks like some military base in Northern Ireland, Bruce. It reminded me of a police station in Antrim or somewhere. It's just one of those slab concrete buildings, isn't it? I think it's got a Tetley sign on one end of it. You probably wouldn't know it's a pub unless you walked up and there's just a little bit of a thing above the door saying the Mayflower. But that looks pretty grim, doesn't it? So
that doesn't look inviting in the slightest, does it?
I did say if we practically tick all these off, and that Budgie one in Glasgow looks. I mean, it just looks like it was in wasteland. There's nothing else near it. It's very, very strange. So that was an interesting one. Obviously, nearer to home to you guys. Big news this week that we mentioned this pub a couple of weeks ago actually, because it was supposed to be one of the coziest pubs. Remember that competition we looked at, and we were a bit kind of
too cozy.
A little bit too cozy because the Star in Harem, which is up near Sutton Bank, top. end of Thursday, burned down on, I think, Monday or Tuesday night this week. It was thatched, but I think it's a 14th century building. And unfortunately, the thatch got fire, and they think it's an arson job. And pretty much the pub looked pretty decimated. And again, there's a couple of photos that I've picked up here from the local press, and it's
but the pub was actually open, so they were quite fortunate. In fact, I read a report that he had a lot of his Mousy Thompson furniture in there, so they managed to get it out.
And if
even so,
if you look on this picture though, now if you look on that right hand side, I mean, there's a picture there where the middle of the pub is completely gutted, but look at that on the right. There's thatch still on that. That's almost untouched. It's amazing, isn't it? How it's just in that one space. So
that's where when the fire brigade did arrive, that's what they tend to do. They tend to try and put a barrier to stop the fire from spreading. Where the fire's already burning, they just say, "Well, we can't save that. There's no point trying to put that out. Let's just put a barrier there." And I think that's when I was seeing images from when it was actually burning. That's what they seem to be doing with it.
Yeah. So a shame, obviously, the village, because it's the only pub in the village, and
there's a pheasant.
Oh, it's a pheasant as well. Yeah, that's still the same chain, is it? Or it's still one of Andrew Pern's, isn't it? No,
I believe that when he split from his wife got the pheasant, and he had the star.
Well, they're both very much foodie pubs, aren't they? They're not really drinking pubs per se. I know they do put real ale, and so that's we'll keep an eye on that one. And then Bruce, a couple of ones here that kind of leads way. One is that Asda are claiming again that they had a big release this week that they're going to start putting in draft beer servers into their supermarkets, and then they're claiming that they're the first supermarket to do this. Although we've already mentioned that a couple of Morrison's branches near Leeds.
Morrison's 4 or 5 years ago, we're doing it.
Yeah. So again, it says that they're currently going to be offering Red Church Brewery and Choo Choo salted caramel milk stout from Fallen Brewing. They're going to charge £8. Does that say what? 1 litre of $5.90 to $8.20 is the range for per litre of craft beer. So again, we'll see how that goes. Really, I claim it's again they're getting on the back of the pub business, and when you mention those pubs in I've had my camera tonight. My local camera said there's a brand new pub, reopening actually in Newcastle. It's been shut for ages. The Crossways actually was a gentleman's club, and not of the Tory kind, but of the kind of lap dancing kind for the last 15 years, and that's been redone. They're going to 6 cask ales on, 15 keg beers on. So it's amazing how people are jumping on this bandwagon, really. And then Bruce, we didn't get into the Duncan. You've mentioned the Duncan a couple of times.
Well, we never will now, by the sounds of it either.
Which is another Leeds Sam Smith legend, isn't it?
It was an institution full of characters, I think, want of a better name, because apparently when it was there after 3 or 4 in the afternoon, apparently it was, people have been saying it was just like a madhouse, really. But I imagine with the pound increase on all the beers and, of course, and Wetherspoons at their prices, people who went there probably couldn't afford the prices. I dare say he's probably closed the Duncan up to try and preserve the General Elliot, but I say, if people, can now, because of course Wetherspoons extended the 99p offer till the end of January now, haven't they? So I suppose for these type of places. But yeah, I think even though people never went in it, it was a Leeds landmark, the Duncan. There are often some very interesting characters hanging around outside, very close to market. So a little bit of old Leeds looks like it's gone forever. Of course, historically, he never closes pubs up Sam Smith's, but it does look as though this one has gone. So. And
again, reading about this was also a big Leeds United pub, not just for fans, but apparently in the good old days, the players and the managers, people would all be in this pub.
Yeah, wouldn't go there now.
Wouldn't go there now.
Right place for him to go, wasn't it? Yeah.
So, we did mention the Duncan in our Leeds episode. And then just last bit of news, because it might time with us next week. Again, interestingly, Yorkshire Brewery Salt Beer Factory, which obviously is on the edge of Saltaire, where we're heading to next week. Interesting, they're building a second brewery in London. They've required the Hop Stuff Brewery tap rooms in Woolwich from Molson Coors, which is, again, we've talked about big brewers buying out small brewers. We've now got small brewers buying like bits of big breweries who are obviously, scaling back a little bit. So, they will be rebranded as Salt London.
Seems to expanding quite aggressively. Do Ossett, don't they? Because Salt's part of Ossett. And,
and again,
you see it everywhere,
all over the place now. You get salt beers in most supermarkets, all over the place now. So I say a very busy week, and just a couple of final ones. And again, just bring back down to earth. And in Stoke-on-Trent, guess what we're having? We're going to have the first ever Wright Pies drive-through.
Fantastic.
So Stoke-on-Trent is building, as we speak, a drive-through pie shop. But obviously, Wright's is a very famous pie in Staffordshire and especially in Stoke. So we're going to have a Wright's drive-through. And then I know, Bruce, you quite like sometimes getting your bargains. So I don't know if you came across this in Tesco's was selling this week. This went all over Twitter. A very good value bag of fish cakes for £1, but somebody got the spelling wrong. So instead of saying pollock fish cakes, they went on the shelf as 12 bollock fish cakes. And what a bargain. 12 bollocks for £1. Absolute
It's
bargain.
unbelievable they got put out, isn't it?
And obviously somebody has put those in all those freezers all through Tesco's without realising that pollock is the fish, not bollock.
Do you think they have, or do you think somebody's photoshopped it?
Oh, I don't know. It was all over Twitter, so I must admit I couldn't see it in Tesco's when I was there. So on to the episode then. So again, we just needed a little bit of a kind of rider to start with. So I've called this episode 26, The Pubs of Christmas, Past, Present and the Future. Because we are thinking back of the pubs that we have been in and we've liked, again, three of us have spent some time in them. Pubs that, again, we've been to, we've already been in maybe this year, and maybe thinking forward where we want to be as well. And there's a bit of a hook here because obviously the podcast is the MalTravAle podcast from Malton, and Malton has got maybe a tenuous claim, but there is a myth or a legend that Charles Dickens was a good friend of a local landowner and also a local solicitor. And there is a I don't know what the word is, legend that spending some time in Malton at Christmas back in the whatever it was, like early 1800s, he got the idea to write a Christmas carol. And in fact, in Malton, just down from the New Malton pub where Nick frequents, is the County House. Yeah. And that's got actually a Charles Dickens museum attached to it. And there is now
I think it's closed again now. It's reliant on volunteers, and it's certainly not open as often as it could be or should be. But
there's a plaque outside that explains it a little bit, doesn't it? And you have a Dickens. Yeah, I don't know if you have this year, Nick, a Dickens festival once a year in Malton.
It's down to the volunteers again, and I think people who tend to volunteer tend to be a little bit older, and as the core die off, then it sort of like, falls by the wayside. So when, as far as I'm aware, we should have had the Santa run today, but they cancelled that. That was down in Norton. So I don't think there's anything Christmas happening as such.
Go ahead, actually. Yes.
What, the Santa run?
Yeah, apparently people went on social media saying it was cancelled, and then it actually went ahead, but with lots less runners because people thought it was
Baltic. Yeah. So that's the link between Dickens and Malton. And certainly when we were younger, I mean, Malton, when all the pubs were open and were cracking, it did have that little sense. And it's a Georgian market town, so with lots of little nooks and crannies and little alleyways and some of those old coaching inns and Georgian pubs. So it did. It's probably not quite the same these days with so many pubs that have been shut in Malton, and obviously quite a few, 1 or 2 new micro bars. But that's our tenuous link to Christmas pubs. So, Bruce, your first choice of Christmas pub, and we're heading to Knaresborough. So obviously we covered some of these. Well, we covered Knaresborough back in, I think, episode 7. When we did Knaresborough and Harrogate, and obviously we all went off to Roosters. So your first pub, now there's some quite good pubs in Knaresborough, and I would wonder where you were going to go for Blind Jack, because I know you like it in there. And obviously we like the Cross Keys because it's a good Ossett pub, but you've actually gone for, well, not unsurprisingly, a Samuel Smith's pub.
It is the commercial. Commercial's a huge, big coaching in. And for us, every year we always go to the Knaresborough Christmas markets, and they have a huge fireworks display at the end. We do have donkey's years. An integral part of that was going to the commercial. And I'll say it's an ex-coaching in. It's got room where the stables are at the back, but it's colossal. And it actually has 1, 2, 3, 4 fires in the one pub. Indeed, the big room at the back is festooned with sort of like fading now, button leather sofas. But that room's so big, it actually has 2 fires in the one room. But it is a fantastic building, wooden floors. Again, like all sounds perfectly preserved. And you're at Christmas, and because of the Christmas markets, it's full of people. It's a fantastic atmosphere, especially when it goes dark there. The fires are roaring. The only sad news is as so many Sam Smith's pubs is now temporarily closed, looking for a couple to run it, as is Marcus of Granby. And indeed, last night we turfed out in the snow to go down to Wellington in Fulford, all chatting amongst ourselves about, well, let's try and get the back room because the fire were roaring. When we got there, that was in darkness with the sound for a couple of days ago. So hopefully the commercial will reopen, but I don't think it will open for next weekend for us all, sadly. But it's absolutely fantastic. And he decorate nice as well. But old great coaching in, loads of history there. I say 4 roaring fires, fantastic. But sadly, now I've just found out closed again.
Right. And again, I think Nick, we've been in Christmas. Me and you have been in there Christmas.
That is a sort of pub, Bruce, with the wood paneling in there. That you could walk in there, and a bit like Doctor Who, you could be taken back in time, and it wouldn't look out of place. You walk in there and see blokes with mutton side chops and top hats on, going back 200 years, because that's how it appears. Once again, I don't know how original the interior is, but I mean, this is what Humphrey from Sam Smith does when he has guys and girls going in to do his refits. They may not be using materials 200 years old, but they do it properly. And that's what he's always had credit for, certainly down in London as well. So whilst these pubs look like they've been touched for 200 years, a lot of them have been refurbed, but it's been done properly. So definitely I agree with you with that one, Bruce, that you step in there and it's almost going back to the time of a Christmas Carol.
It is.
And again, it's kind of on the main road through Knaresborough, isn't it, as you're heading down to go over the river. So it's slightly away from the town centre. So I think when I've been there, it's never been, I know it's probably busy at Christmas, Bruce, but it never gets overly busy. No, it's such a massive place that you can come find a nook or a cranny. And again, if you get sat in one of those windows on a lovely afternoon with the sun blazing, even in winter, like you say, it's a fantastic place, really. Obviously, a limited choice of beer because it'll just be Sam Smith's. But if you like Sam Smith's beers, then they're not bad. But like you say, commercial. So I guess it would have been probably in the old days a coaching inn. Obviously, most towns had a commercial hotel, didn't they? Malton had a commercial hotel, which was for people on trade, wasn't it? 10-minute walk from railway station, Bruce, up the hill, across the Market Square.
Yeah. 10 minutes going there and not six going back because it's all uphill. Then, but do it in 10
and then you've got the Wetherspoons.
If it's snowing or you've got a sledge, 2 minutes back.
You've got the Wetherspoons across the road, and then you've obviously got the Marketplace with Blind Jacks, two other pubs, haven't you?
We've got the Frosties, which is an Ossett Brewery pub who keep the Osseties in absolute fantastic condition and significantly cheaper than in York. And sadly, you've also got the Marcus of Granby, which I've not been to for years, but I was in there last Sunday afternoon. I had to take my daughter for a COVID vaccination there, and we walked past the Marcus of Granby. I didn't realise that had closed either, but we could peek through the windows and you forget what a fantastic pub. It's a classic two-room boozer, a cast iron and tile fireplace in each room, a classic bar. I mean, it really is tragic now. I mean, there are about 96 of his pubs closed now. Apparently he's got 40 of them, couples in training, about to reopen. But it's pretty tragic what's happened to that pub estate because they're all some of the most authentic, untouched pubs in the country. And they're lying dormant now. And the Marcus of Granby looked as though it had been closed for a long, long time. Just mothballed inside and gathering.
Okay, so that's Bruce's first choice. So let's move on to Nick's first choice. So for Nick's first choice, we are going to Keighley. A regular haunt that we mentioned. Might not quite get in there next week. It's a little bit off the kind of the line that goes a bit further north. And again, a pub that probably needs no introduction, Nick, because we mentioned it probably every other podcast. But your choice was the Bolt Makers, obviously in Keighley, which is similar, but it's got Bruce's tick for its fires. So
that was it. As I'd mentioned earlier on, really coming up with a Christmas pub, because Christmas for the last 15, 20 years has been coming down to yours. Before that, then I think we would have all been saying Sotheby's. But none of us has been in Sotheby's for quite a few years now, because that was Christmas.
And we went in there about a month ago, Nick.
Well, we did, but what I'm saying is, consistently and basically every other day or every night. I mean, Sotheby's used to be open on Christmas Day, before Christmas dinner, when we used to walk up there. Yeah. So for a traditional pub in the Yorkshire town where Neil always had his fires in, I'll give him that. Whilst he had 3 or 4 blokes to actually make the fires for him because he couldn't be asked to do it himself. At the same time, he always did have a real firing, whether it was Ernie or whether it was whoever else was being paid in beer to keep the fire going. So, and in terms of the ambience, now betting on Saturday afternoon in Malton when they're racing on the TV, and people coming and going doing the shopping, coming in for a quick one, popping back out again, coming back in again. That door opening, closing onto the high street, cold wind coming in, closing up again. So that would have been one of my choices. But as I've not been frequenting there for the last 5-10 years, possibly, I had to think about Christmas. And yeah, I suppose going back to that time period again, we always used to have a pilgrimage over to Keighley. Now, you've moved away, Mike, but me and Bruce have done that 3 or 4 times at least, haven't we, Bruce? And it's the thing is, I mean, that Keighley isn't a nice little market town anymore. It was once upon a time, but unfortunately, it's part of the conurbate sprawl now. That street is probably one of the more depressing streets you can come across anyway. The boat makers itself is now posh, it's not grand inside, but it is a little oasis. So when you're going down that windswept street, walking from the station to what you could say is a town centre, Keighley, although even then it doesn't really seem to have a heart or a soul anymore. To nip into there, into that little, it's not really even a 2-room, is it? It's sort of a 1-room.
Yeah,
you know, front and back.
Yeah.
The fire in the front is always still a real fire. I hope it's still a real fire. Not a great space to sit. Once again, frequented only by the locals, and this comes back to your mention, Mike, that it's not in the good beer guide anymore. Because I suppose in that respect, in terms of, you know, a stranger beardy weirdy walking in there, then maybe they're not always as greeted as well. But if you're prepared to go in there and not make a big fuss, and you're just going in for a drink, and you don't expect to take over the place and dominate, monopolise the bar or the seating area around the fire, then the folks are nice and friendly and they always accept you. And once again, the nice thing with area, they are the locals regulars going in there, and you see people popping in with the shopping and popping back out again and then popping in again. And you've got the full range of the Taylor's beers there as well. So that's what I remember, you know, between Christmas, New Year, on a cold day, just bobbing in there, getting in front of the fire. We always used to have at least 2 in there. Any other pub we went in on the beer trip, it was only 1. We had to restrict ourselves to 1 because we knew how many pubs were going to go in. But we always used to stop and have another one in the Bolt Makers before we moved on back to the station again.
I think back to us going there, you know, over 20 years ago, I still maintain when the Golden Best was Golden Best.
I was going to mention the Golden Best.
Oh, God, it was absolutely stunning. You could have sat there and up pints of it.
This technically is the.
It was getting older, or did it taste better then?
No, I think it did. And this is technically the. This is technically the Timothy Taylor's Brewery tap, isn't it? Or it's the unofficial tap, because the brewery's not a million miles away. And as Nick said, it's quite handy for the station. What is it, about 5 minutes, Nick? A quick zip back to the station.
6-7 minutes, as long as I can get across that mad road.
Yeah. Right, so that's Nick's and Bruce's first Christmassy pub. So I'm going to go back to my one now. I don't know whether Nick's got any more thoughts about what I'm talking about. This might help now because these are kind of more summary pictures. So,
holly tree.
The holly bush.
Holly bush, right?
So, you know, obviously holly, Christmassy. So this is a little bit kind of off the beaten track. This is a place called Denford, which is in between Stoke and Leek. But this pub is quite unique in that it's got a canal at the front of it and a canal at the back of it. Because this is the kind of the branch that comes off the Trent and Mersey. It's the Cauldron Canal, but it again splits itself as it gets to Denford. So one bit goes up and over and goes over a little viaduct over the top of the pub, and that heads off to Leek, and then the Cauldron one heads up to Froghall. So it's quite unique in that it's got a canal either side. So you can do a lovely walk along the canal and then get the other canal back to kind of where you started. So, Nick, I don't remember, we went here. Well, we've been a couple of times. Because the other draw is it's got some chipmunks. They have chipmunks around the back in a cage that you can sit and watch, and outside they are. But Nick, if you remember, we had a very, very snowy Christmas Eve, and I think our job was to take the kids out so that my missus could get all the packing done to help Father Christmas, of course, so that all his presents were done. And I remember me, you, my mother, and I think both of my kids crammed in the back of my little red Suzuki Jimny. I remember us going to Morrison's to get some bread or something. It was literally shutting down. And we ended up getting here, go for a walk, which was a bit curtailed because, again, it was another really snowy day. And I remember just being in here and it was just that Christmassy fog. You know, it was pretty full. We managed to get a table in front of the bar. It's a bit weird. No, not weird. There's a lot of eating spaces on the back, but we've got in that front bar, again, for those on the YouTube, it's a picture on the right there. Had a great afternoon. So it's a place I actually used to go to quite a lot. Probably not been as much recently.
Well, the problem is you're travelling, isn't it? Unless you've got a
Yeah,
boat, you've got
yeah,
to drive there, really.
yeah. We used to go there on the boat quite a bit, and the kids loved it because there's a bit of a farm. They have a bit of a petting zoo and things as well, and it's a nice place you could sit and drink. I've walked actually a few times. When I've walked a few times along the canal to Leek and Stoke and back again. That's a good place for a
And
drink. So
they were tug of war champions, weren't they?
that's right. Yeah, there's a tug of war team that are based there, and they're world champions. So interestingly, it's a Thwaites pub, which is a bit weird because it's the middle of kind of the Staffordshire Moorlands. So Thwaites beers, but they always, as you see there, there's always about 5 or 6 hand pumps on, and they've always had a great range of beer. So it's a great Christmassy pub. I think you're right. The only problem is you've got to get there, so you need someone to drive you there. And if the roads aren't too bad, or if the roads are bad, like they were when we were there, a 4-wheel drive's quite handy as well. So the Hollybush, TransPennine Ale is my first choice of pub. And there it is in Christmas, and that was the shot that I started off for those again on YouTube. So let's move on. Bruce, your second Christmassy pub, again, is a pub that starred, I think, in episode 11. And both you and Nick were very eulogising over this place. And I think it was the one pub of the 8 or 9 that you talked about up in the northeast that you visited that you definitely both go back to. So we're heading to the fantastic cathedral and university town of Durham. And this pub is kind of on the way up to the site to the top, isn't it? So, Nick, can you guess which one it is? Because you haven't seen this yet.
Right, it's got to be the Victoria.
There you go. So there's the Victoria. And again, and there's Bruce's fire inside it with probably people sat there at the moment. But so, yeah, Bruce, the Victoria. Now, I know you spoke quite a lot in that episode of the Northeast, but Christmassy pub?
Absolutely. Especially when it's dark. So they've got 3 rooms, including strange for Victorian pub. If you're looking on YouTube, that picture on the bottom right, that glass screen to the right is actually a door to what they call the family room, which is actually really, really cosy. Bizarrely, I didn't even know if families were allowed in pubs in Victorian days, so we encounter this.
Well, no, that was originally, that was the outsales, Bruce, that connected to the corridor that took you outside. So that was for people not wanting to come into the pub to buy the beer. So that's why that little kiosk is there. But you go through there now. That's like to get into the back room rather than going down the corridor.
Mm.
The rest of the pub is a perfectly preserved Victorian pub. It absolutely clean. It's barely been altered at all, has it, Nick? They have a great range of beers on. Spot a lot of the local breweries. You'll also get a Big Lamp beer there. One of the oldest now rail ale breweries. They were like the only rail ale brewery in Newcastle on a small scale when we were young, weren't the Big Lamp from the West End of Newcastle. They're still brewing. The staff are great. And again, you could
cracking section of whiskies as well. If you like a whiskey at Christmas.
Yeah, they've got red
yeah, Bruce mentioned that, and I've got a picture somewhere. He mentioned the Green Spot whiskey, which I must admit I've not actually come across Green Spot. It's Irish whiskey, isn't it, Bruce?
It's rare to find it in this country, I have to say, but they've got a stunning selection. I'll say friendly locals. And as we talked about the commercial, you could go back in there, especially the other rooms right side, and you really could imagine being transported back in time, couldn't you, Nick? Really, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. The effort they put into keeping the pub, preserving it, the work, there's so many nooks and crannies is fantastic. They've also got to think about 4 rooms upstairs as well. And I was looking, it's anywhere between £79 to £99 a night to stay there. All the rooms have the old sort of utilitarian 4-poster beds. So it's a great base for a night in Durham. Stunning pub, Victoria. I would say definitely one of the 10 best pubs in the country, without a shadow of a doubt.
Right. And I presume this will be in the Camera Good Beer Guide, won't it? Because it's pretty much omnipresent, isn't it, there?
Yeah, they definitely that one, yeah.
And I think, Nick, those pictures I think you shared with us in, I think, episode 11, were you and Bruce probably there at Christmas time, because it was quite a wintry night, I remember.
It was.
Yeah, beginning of December, I think. Was it, Bruce? Yeah. Mid-December.
Yeah. It was surprisingly quiet. It was the last Christmas lockdown. It was surprisingly quiet around. We thought it'd be full of revellers, but it wasn't.
No, I mean, I think it's one of those because it's in the residential area of Durham. I think I need to know where it is, Bruce.
Yeah.
Because the time of day it was sort of like tea time-ish. Yeah. You know, anybody would consider it to be their local, as in living around there, probably go out there on an evening. So I think we just did it right. The only problem was it was a horrible night, and it's a fair walk back to the station. There,
I was going to say that. It's about 20 minutes to the station.
Yeah. 20 minutes, in winter. Yeah. I must admit, next time we go to the Northeast, I think we need to. I've been doing a bit of research, actually. There seems to be some decent pubs in Gateshead, which we've never been to. 1 or 2 suburbs of Newcastle we need to visit. I think that we restaurant at the same places, and likewise Durham. And interestingly as well, like we went to Wakefield last time, now seems to be 3 or 4 really good pubs in Darlington, which is a place we've never considered going for a drink. But when you look at the Good Beer Guide, there are probably 3 or 4 pubs there that might well be worth stopping off if you get stopping off on the way back.
We'll have to plan a weekend then, a MalTravAle weekend. Does TransPennine get you up to Durham?
Yeah.
Because now I'm
yeah.
55, I get my special 55, £20 return off peak. So that'll be great for me because I could go away from Stoke. It'll be great. So that's something we'll plan. So that's the Victoria Hotel, and that's in Durham. And that was Bruce's second choice for Christmassy pubs. So we're going to move on to another gem because I've seen Nick's choice. And again, I think Bruce will get this straight away. So we'll move on. So we're now heading across the down the East Coast slightly, and we're going to end up in Beverley, which again we obviously have visited previously in our East Yorkshire trip, which is one of our earlier ones actually, back in probably episode 3 or 4, when we did East Riding, Beverley, Driffield, Hull. And Bruce, you can probably guess which pub Nick's Nellie's or the White Horse. So come on, Nick, this is another kind of Victorian gem, isn't it? That hasn't changed at all since Christmas of Dickens, probably.
Yeah, as I said about the commercial in Knaresborough, you wouldn't freak out if you walked in there and saw Dickensian characters sat around, because that's the whole character of the pub. The thing I like about Nellie's is it's got all those different little rooms, and those different rooms have got different atmospheres and different characters, really. You know, you've got a quiet, darker room where couples will go. You've got one where all the old boys go. Obviously, you've got the main bar area that you've got people coming and going. You've got a games room in the back. They've even got the upstairs now where the students tend to go, with the big sofas in front of the fire. But it's one of those places that, once again, because it's just off the town centre there, people drop in and out of. Once again, the street itself, there's nothing else on there apart from houses, and there's a couple of little sort of, not industrial, but sort of like workshops. So it's not a place where, if you were a tourist, you'd come across very easily. And that, once again, the street where it is can be a bit windswept. Really, it's a street that runs sort of south to north. So when the wind's blowing down there, you see the White Horse above the little doorway there. It's a little bit of a beacon. You walk in there, the smell straight away because it's lit by gas lamps. So that gas lamp smell with the little elements or filters, whatever you want to call them, you know, as they're burning away, gives it its atmosphere straight away. And it's the sort of pub, in fact, that you could almost sit back with a beer in front or near to the fire, and you could almost fall asleep, and you know nobody's going to come and bother you, because it's that so dark and dingy, people probably won't notice you. You know, I'm surprised nobody's actually died in there and they never noticed them, you know, and found some like 2 days later. But everything you want in a pub at winter, I think Nellie's or the White Horse has it.
Definitely Dickensian, isn't it? Definitely got that, like you say, that feel to it.
Again, it has to be one of the 10 best pubs in the country. I mean, I was telling one of my friends, and he had a friend up from London, and he took him there a few days ago. And he said his jaw just hit the floor when he walked in and saw it. You know, he waited while it was dark and went in. Because there's a totally different vibe during the daylight. It's not nice all in the daylight. You need to be there when it's dark, don't you? And he just couldn't believe it, you know.
But even during the day, it's dark. You walk in there in the middle of a summer's day, and if you have your full beer, somebody walks in there with a
vibe though altogether, hasn't it? It's got a different vibe altogether.
But I'm going to be controversial. I think it'd be a fantastic pub if it had 1 or 2 guest beers, and I think that would be my problem with it. You know, that you're going to have to drink all brewery bitter in here, full stop, and whatever they've got on keg, which might be sovereign, but probably won't be. We've talked about the Sam Smith's bottles. If this pub had, like, you know, my Mellards had a Oakham Citra on, and an Ossett Butterley, and a Pentrick, and a Timothy Sanders.
But that's if you don't like Sam Smith's pub and that beer, and that's the other thing. Yeah, you walk out with the main bar, you can see the beer laid down in the wooden barrels. You can actually see the cellar.
Then why can't you have a Theakston's wooden, you know, an old peculiar out of a wood barrel from Theakston's? I just think it misses that. And great, Sam Smith's is fantastic, and I don't mind it, but I just would like to be able to drink another beer in there, because, like you say, I think drinking a couple of different beers in there would be a fantastic experience.
Would be right.
I think last time me and Nick were in there at Christmas time. I remember it because we actually agreed we'd try the mild. So they do I don't know if they still do. They used to do a light mild and a dark mild. Yeah. And I remember going up and asking for a pint of light and a pint of dark, please. And the landlady charged them like £2.60. And I said, no, I've ordered 2 pints. She goes, yeah, you're drinking mild. So
it was 134 a pint before the increase. It's now 2.29 a pint.
Yeah. So
Didn't get a pint last night, yeah.
bonkers.
It was astonishing, isn't it? 135 for a pint of beer.
Okay, but I don't think we can argue with, and rather than me being a bit of beer snob, but we can't argue with, I think, a great pub, definitely a great pub. Beverley's a great Christmas town anyway, isn't it? But it's got that feel about it. You can imagine people hanging out windows shouting, get me a turkey, you young boy, go and get me a turkey, and that a fantastic marketplace. And if you go there, market days on as well. And again, quite a few other decent pubs that you can visit, new and old, in Beverley as well. Okay, so that's Nick's second choice. So now my second choice, I'm going to be honest, I've kind of cheated a little bit. So I've gone too far here. I've cheated a little bit because I've actually got 3 pubs here. Because I think the best Christmas pub is the day that you finish work for Christmas and you pack up for 2 weeks. So I've always felt that. And when in my previous life, we did used to call it the best day of the year. So working in education, we always had a lunchtime finish on the last day of term. Normally, either students already gone or we kicked them out early. And we normally then had a few beers in work and then we would all go off.
That's like 5 piss-ups a year then, isn't it, for teachers? So
no,
you
only
get
Christmas.
5 holidays.
No, we only do it at Christmas.
All right, yeah, so we're talking about Christmas, weren't we?
And this would be one of those magical experiences that I'm sure lots of drinkers know, that you kind of get into the pub about 2 o'clock on an afternoon and you stay in that pub probably till about 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And until you go through, you go through the afternoon, you go through the twilight. There's normally then a little bit of a quiet bit about 6 o'clock when you're trying to ram some food down here. Then you get
all your students coming in.
Second wind. So the pubs that I've got here, one is the Fawn and Firkin. Remember that chain in the good old days?
Yeah.
In fact, that pub doesn't exist anymore because that pub actually is now where the new college that I used to work at up the hill, this is the nearest pub to it. This was all knocked down to build Stafford University and the new college in Stoke-on-Trent. You'll know this place because if you ever go on the West Coast Main Line, as you leave Stoke Station, it's immediately on the left. The Fawn and Firkin was on one side of that little side street. On the other side was the Roebuck, which is a bigger pub. So Fawn and Firkin was a cracking little pub. Obviously, it was one of those very early brew pubs. So they brewed their own beer around the back. I think they had something called Rattler and something else, which again, there used to be a strong one and a not so strong one. So that was one of my best memories in there, playing darts. The landlord would normally put on chip butties at about 6 o'clock. So just great, just relaxing, talking to colleagues, talking to people that, although you might have seen them, probably have not spoken to them. Sometimes I spoke to people once a year in that pub, and that was the last day. When that pub got knocked down, we then moved to the White Star, which is was one of the Titanic pubs. This is right in the middle of the Stoke town centre. We talked about Stoke and weird town centres because there were 6 of them. This was again a great pub, taken over by Titanic, about 15 years ago now. And unfortunately, again, part of the lockdown, the lease was due up, and so Titanic have actually pulled out. So it's no longer a Titanic pub. I'm glad to say it's still open, and they are serving Titanic beers, but somebody more freeholders taking it on. So still a great pub. Again, fairly stripped back, floorboards, a couple of nice different areas as well. And then now that I'm in St Helens, the nearest pub to where I work now is the Bird If Hand, which again is a really interesting name. Probably it's quite a common name in Lancashire, apparently. Bird If Hand, which is kind of short for bird in the hand. I'm guessing
pretty literate in Lancashire, aren't they?
I'm guessing this was probably a Green or Whitley pub in the good old days, a bit of like a roadhouse. It's now, I think it's Green Kig now, and it's like you said, but it's a massive pub. It's got a big beer garden around the back. Unfortunately, of course, I'm normally having nothing drive all the way back to Stoke from here, so I don't tend to have much drink in there. Although I have a couple of times I've stayed over, and in fact, there's another fantastic pub which is a little bit further down towards the town centre called the Cricketers. And again, anybody who's ever drunk beer in St Helens knows that the Cricketers is the greatest pub. Again, that's another one of the ubiquitous pub of the year, camera pub of the year, camera guide. That's a bit lower down. So I cheated a little bit there, but I think the pub that you go into on the last day of your work, where you break up for Christmas and go with colleagues, has got to be a great pub. So 6 pubs, some a bit different. I think probably the Dickensian theme, certainly through Bruce and Nick's, was quite strong. Which again is not surprising because a lot of people say is that Dickens has kind of framed, didn't he, the kind of modern or our view of Christmas, very much so. Not just the Muppet Christmas Carol, but the kind of things that we do. And obviously that was heightened by Queen Victoria and particularly Prince Albert, who brought the things at the Christmas trees. So yeah, that's really kind of got me in the festive mood, really. So we've got a few weeks to go yet. We're still in November, but it certainly feels like Christmas has cranked on. So again, just fingers crossed that we are going to get to go to pubs this year, because we definitely missed them last year. And drinking at home is great, but it's not the same, is it? And that's a lovely.
Definitely not.
Yeah, and I'm already thinking about where Nick's coming down this year, so we probably get a couple of beers on Christmas Eve, definitely. And then we normally have a little walk, don't we, Nick, on the bank on Boxing Day, go for a little walk with a pub somewhere or a pub at the end of it. So trying to think of somewhere different, it's a bit new. So really looking forward to that. Talking of which, so next week, after much kind of and ahhing, and probably my fault because I kept changing the weekend, Sheffield seems to be, I don't know, there's something very strange happening in Sheffield next week. We know that Madness are playing at the arena, but the cost of hotels and transport to Sheffield has gone astronomically.
Well, that's what I couldn't understand in hindsight. You were saying that you wanted to stop over because it'll take you too long to get there, and then cost of train was. But in fact, where we're going now, it'll take us, both of us, longer to get home, and the cost of the train's even more expensive going to Sheffield.
No, it takes an hour off my journey. I can get there an hour and a half.
It doesn't have 2.5 hours for me to get back to bloody Staley Bridge on TransPennine.
You'll have Bruce with you. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
you'll be able to.
We'll get off at Leeds and go to the Eagle.
He'll take you on a tour.
Looking forward to that rammed train already. All people coming back from Liverpool and Manchester, all those are the.
So the plan is that I'm going to set off from the West Coast line. I'm going to go up to Manchester and then jump on the TransPennine, and I'm going to head towards Dewsbury and alight at the refreshment rooms, which we mentioned again in an earlier podcast, and sit there and wait for hopefully Nick and Bruce, who have joined up at York, and then have got to Leeds, and then have got on the TransPennine. In fact, you might be able to get the same train, won't you?
I think we'll be there before you, because I'm aiming to get out of Malton at 10 o'clock, and I'll be in Dewsbury at 11:22.
Right. And then the plan is, because I planned
there's still a big market in Dewsbury. I always remember there used to be a massive
market. It used to be a massive market, yeah.
So maybe 22 minutes past 11 is a bit early for drinking, unless they've got the Wetherspoons.
It's a bad forecast, though. It's going to rain quite a lot, so we might not be going very far from the station. Because
rain's better than snow, because once again, that line is notorious for being affected by snow.
So the plan is then we're going to head via Huddersfield. Bruce is keen that we go to Slaithwaite, or Thlanet, as it's called in local language, Marsden, and then I've planned it so that they'll leave me at Staley Bridge. So I've only got 9 minutes to get back to Manchester and then get down the line down the West Coast, because I'm on my own. And these two will head back. We'll turn around and head back eastwards along the TransPennine. So taking the recording stuff with us, so we'll try and find a couple of spots like we did at the York trip and the York trips we did, and catch up. I've learned now how not to make us have eunuch voices like we did on
helium with us, I say.
So I've worked out what that was. I've worked out what it was now. So hopefully we'll have a good crack, a good Christmas drink. Hopefully try a few different beers. I think we're going to end up probably going to a range of pubs. A lot of them that we've probably mentioned in previous podcasts, and hopefully we'll report back and we'll all get back safely. Fingers crossed. And between now and then, Boris won't shut the pubs. So that's the plan anyway. So that'll be the next episode, probably out in a week or so. So, gentlemen, have you got any other plans for the week ahead?
No, I don't think so.
Bruce is going on mute. Bruce, you're on mute. We haven't done that podcast.
No, I've been watching the news desperately because I'm due to be in Dublin 2 weeks on Wednesday. But I will be in Knaresborough next Sunday for the Knaresborough Christmas markets and fireworks, and visiting the Cross Keys and Blind Jacks, but sadly, not the commercial.
Okay, so cheers, everybody. Hope that's been an intro to get you in a Christmassy mood. And I said we'll hopefully see you in a week's time with revels about the TransPennine Ale Trail. So we will see you then.
Bye.
See you later.
What for?
Look where music's gone. Right, we'll stop anyway.
Sing some Christmas carols.
Yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody, said Tiny Tim.
Deck the halls with flag and golly.
Right, stop recording.